Hey guys, Dave and Tim here with the Single Malt Review, bringing you another fascinating Antiques Roadshow here. I need a better pun for that to work in the drinkable angle, but no, Antiques Roadshow it is. And it's a handy time because it has just worked out that it's a pretty significant date. What is it, Dave?
Well, this is a little piece of history here. This is the 1953 Coronation bottling of Guinness. Now, Elizabeth II became Queen in 1952, following the death of her father, King George VI. The formal coronation festivities weren't held until a year later for reasons of, I suppose, good taste and decorum, but not throwing a huge party soon after the death of the previous monarch. So what we have here is, yes, the special bottling for that occasion. As we record this, in fact, it is the 4-day bank holiday weekend to mark the Platinum Jubilee in the UK, 70 years of Elizabeth II.
Ideally, also when I upload this, but time will tell how fast I am on the edit.
A very surprising number of bottles of this special brew still kicking around, unopened.
Yeah, there sure is. They're not even that expensive. You can sort of pick these up for sort of £30-odd/euro in fairly poor condition, which you'd have to describe. You'd have to describe ours as it's seen, 70 years. It's looking pretty good for 70 years, I tell you what.
If you want to see some close-ups of a label, find us on Instagram. We'll have some pictures up there.
And ideally I'll be weaving in some filmic photographs that I already took. So just in case that falls through, I'll give you a look at the back, because there you can see the sigil, and it's so held up a hell of a lot better.
And the glasswork on the bottle too, but it's nicely cast.
Yeah, it's a cool wee bottle.
Yeah.
And a cool wee beer. And we're going to do something, if you haven't figured this out already. Collectors out there probably crossing their legs already. This is going to really hurt. We're going to open this one. We're going to try it. We're going to drink 70-year-old beer. And it's going to be a pretty wild adventure. So cross your fingers. If this is the last you hear from us, then I guess it went poorly. But I think we'll be okay. Just before I crack this baby here, the stats on the beer itself, it is Guinness Foreign Extra, which is a big, strong Guinness. It's really not like Guinness... Guinness Stout off the pool with your little shamrocks and whatnot. This was Guinness by the way of IPA. It was built to survive the trip out to the West Indies, Africa, wherever it needed to go, and it remains popular there. And it's a big old 7.5% ABV. Yeah. I really wanted to get a modern bottle as a comparison, but bug it if I can find one anywhere in New Zealand. Even in Australia, it just seems to be totally unavailable. So never mind. We'll just have to go off the top of our head there.
Standard original recipe Guinness is in fact brewed in New Zealand under licence, so getting a proper Irish Guinness out here can be tricky. And speaking of Ireland, you might think it's a bit of a curiosity, a fine Irish institution like Guinness making a special bottling to celebrate the British monarch.
Well, I guess they maybe they pulled the wool over the Irish there, because you could be forgiven for wondering why the Republican Irish were merrily brewing away Jubilee bottles of stout for everybody. But it was in fact bottled in England. It was bottled in Liverpool at the Guinness Company's sort of headquarters and warehouses over there. Like all the beer out of the St James Gate Brewery back then, it went into barrel, probably hogsheads, funnily enough. Long lost to time by now, but it was barged over and the bottling actually took place over there in Liverpool. So maybe the Irish didn't even know what was destined to their poor old Guinness there, but never mind. Okay, it's going to happen now. It is going to happen. Something that has been waiting to happen for 70 years is going to take place, and I'm a little bit butterflies.
So this is a foil sealed crown cap.
It's a crown cap. There's probably a cork disc underneath the crown cap, which was the style at the time, style for most of that century really, and that may not be still intact. And if the beer has gotten through and has attacked the metal, we might be in for a bit of a poor experience here. I'm hoping to see that still intact. If we get any gas off this, if this is to quote another YouTuber who opens things, and I think it's probably trademarked the phrase, but never mind. If we get a nice hiss, then I'll be astonished. I'll be flabbergasted. I think this is going to be one of the flattest beers on the planet right now, but we're going to find out. Okay.
So this post-dates pasteurisation for beer, right? So
no, this is pasteurised. They were pasteurising very, very early there.
Exactly. So as long as it stayed sealed, it should still be as healthy as the day it was brewed.
All right, here we go. I
heard
a few molecules coming out of there. Boy, that's on pretty tight. Oh, that's on immensely tight. What are they? Oh, here we go. There we go.
Built
There
to
we go.
last. Well, took all off with it.
Now, what have we got? What have they used? All right, it's a composite lid. That's interesting.
Oh,
It is a cork disc,
okay.
but there's a supplementary metal disc
Interesting.
which was placed over the top. I've never seen that before. That's pretty peculiar. That's why it was so difficult to get off. Doesn't smell like a disaster.
There's some intense residue on that.
Yeah, there is.
Neck.
Some separation has occurred. All right, let's see.
Oh, that
Let's get
smells
down
like
to
a
business.
stout.
Yeah, okay. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be an ad for the keepability of Guinness? All right, here we go. Looks like a stout too.
Is there any chance of any viable yeasts still lurking in?
Well, sadly, pasteurisation in that respect is a bit of a double-edged sword. One, it means it's going to be safer beer for us to drink, but sadly it means anything that was once living in there is now soundly dead and cooked. So, because you can famously harvest yeast out of Belgian bottles and things like that are bottle conditioned, but no, pasteurised, which basically just means they've run a bunch of boiling water through it, over the bottles, that is, not the beer. Yeah, clean. Anyway, so it certainly hasn't lost any colour over the years.
Indeed.
There's a nose on
The
there.
beer will photodegrade in direct sunlight. It'll, same way with a bottle of old Coca-Cola, will go clear if you leave it in the sun. Beer, not quite as intense, I'm sure, especially not in the green bottle, designed to protect against that, but you'd still lose, I'm sure, something from sun exposure.
You know, the moment you said Coca-Cola, I'm getting weird cola notes out of here. What does this smell like? It's a mild nose. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay, first off, there's no wild badness. There is no.
There's no smell of rot or any.
There's no awfulness
funk or
coming out of
Brettanomyces or whatever else. It's just gentle. There's some cola nut. There's some chocolate.
Yeah, cola,
A bit
chocolate.
of coffee.
There's
just
a lot of
classic stout notes.
It's quite rummy.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, treacle. This is very identifiably.
It's good. Even on that
stout.
cap, there was no visible rust.
Yeah.
There's no obviously rot on the cork, so that's stayed intact.
I
And
think
sealed.
that might be a very early use of aluminium there.
Interesting.
On the wet
Yeah.
disc.
Huh.
Oh, I have to check that. Anyway, all right. So anything else we can glean? There's even a tiny few bit of. There's some CO2 left in there.
Yeah.
You can see it
We
just
heard that
beating.
faint hiss when we
Yeah.
opened. It could just be due to air pressure differences.
That's
but
incredible.
although,
Right.
no, we're probably at the same altitude as where it was bottled. So
I'm going in. That's all right.
oh, it's got a little bit of sharpness to it, a touch of vinegar, but otherwise
That's all
it is
right.
still recognisably a sturdy dark beer.
What does that taste
I'll
of?
be surprised and impressed.
Okay. Yeah, more treacle, sugarcane, cola. There's a bit of sweet spice.
There's a very bitter black coffee note, which I like.
Yeah, it gets sort of biscuity air and dry
Yeah.
as it goes on. Something else.
I'm getting a little bit of a sort of Belgian lambic fruit sour note to it. Just a slight
There is something
tang.
fruity, almost
Yeah.
a black cherry kind of a, not quite marzipan, more of a fresh cherry, but it is, as you might imagine, pretty complex for 70 years.
Yeah.
Can imagine drinking something so much older than you are.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
This the Coronation in '53 was 30 years before I was born, so this is
Imagine the world that this beer has seen.
exactly.
My
yeah.
goodness, well, it's probably, imagine the inside of the attic that this beer has seen, but how many attics? It must have moved so many times. This is, you don't quite, it's difficult to really wrap your mind around just the stretch of time and the fact that this thing is still here and still does what it says, on the, as it were, on the tin. That's really, that's really quite fantastic. Can you dredge any other tasting notes up out of there?
I think we covered all the big ones. There are the classic stout notes. There's that curious coffee bitterness and just a touch of acid and sourness. Otherwise, though, it has held up. It's obviously gone places in its time. I'd be curious to know what the alcohol content is, whether it's bled any off somehow
Well,
or
it bled a teensy bit off. The level wasn't down,
No.
which is a good indicator that you've got a breach somewhere in your exchanging atmosphere. But alcohol sneaks out a lot easier than water does, so it's probably lost a teensy bit, but I don't think it's lost heaps. You still get a wee bit of warmth coming through
Yeah, I was preparing myself for something
Yeah.
honestly undrinkable, something that may have rotted or otherwise just turned simply bad. But no, it is
Have
stood the test
a
of
wee bit
time.
more there, Dave. Let's toast the past.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yes, Elizabeth is, of course, the nominally head of state for New Zealand as well. We are also a constitutional monarchy.
Yeah, we can non-ironically call Her Majesty.
Yes.
Probably one of the last few countries that can have that claim to fame, but might as well while we've got it. So yes, cheers, Dave.
Cheers.
And God save the Queen.